Good evening. My name is Nancy Pearson. Together with Nicole Elkington, I'm one of the co-chairs of the Larchmont Mamaroneck Human Rights Committee. Go ahead. Okay. And we are thrilled to see so many people here, great school, to help us commemorate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. We want to recognize our elected officials who have had a busy week with many NLK events, in addition to all they do. County, town, village trustees, school board members, could you please just stand up and give a wave? I also want to thank the Mamaroneck Coalition for Affordable Housing for being in the lobby tonight. Some of the members of that committee have been our professionals working in the housing for decades. We've been honored to learn from them and about this crisis. In 1968, the year Dr. King was assassinated, that was also the year the Fair Housing Act was born. Today, as there's a housing crisis for working people across this country and in our community, we must find creative ways to rezone, build, and preserve a diverse variety of affordable housing options for the socially, economically diverse groups of people in every municipality. Please take some time to learn more about this group. I'm sure everything that's on their table will be there when you walk out if you missed it. Our Human Rights Committee started as 3 separate commissions, and somewhere along the way, the records are a bit fuzzy, became the Tri-Municipal Human Rights Commission. In 2009, we gave up being a commission and became the Larchmont Mamaroneck Human Rights Committee. Much of what we have been doing was taken over by our reinvigorated county and state commissions. We're happy to have them do that work, and we stay in touch with them as needed. We do continue to discuss and publicly or privately comment on issues of human rights here in our community, and several of us represent our Human Rights Committee on other local committees, such as the Affordable Housing Committee and the School District Equity Team, which you will hear from later. But we were not ready to give up our annual Martin Luther King Jr. Commemoration event. For 36 years, we've brought speakers from a variety of backgrounds, some from the national stage, such as Charles Blow, Andrew Young, Harry Belafonte, and some very local, as we have tonight. We learn from each other, about each other, and about the ongoing and amazing, and sometimes unsung work that is going on around us. Each event has a theme based on the speaker's topic, and this year's theme is learning from the past, going into the future. We also take these opportunities to honor either individuals from the community or community organizations whose work is a reflection of the lessons we've learned from Dr. King. Our past honorees are listed on your program. If you read through them, you should be very proud that you live in such an amazing community, always looking out for our neighbors in so many ways. You'll hear from this year's honorees shortly. And finally, like many of our programs, tonight will be filled with celebration in the form of music and poetry. Before I introduce the first of our artists, I do want to invite anyone who has the time or interest to find out more about what the Human Rights Committee does when we are not planning events, or anyone who loves to plan an event like this. Please reach out to any of us. We'd be very excited to welcome new committee members, and on the back of the insert in your program is our contact information. And now is the time to introduce our local artists who will start us in the right direction. Isabella Begtow and Gabriella Bailey, both students at MHS, and they will be singing Wish. They will be followed by Autumn Carino, also a student at MHS, and she's on the district equity team. You'll see her several times tonight. She'll be reciting an original poem, and she will also stay on the stage and show us one of her other talents when she sings. Magic, when she sings magic. Bill Derby will be accompanying her. He's the music teacher from the PACE program at the high school.
I wish I could explore the Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only skies. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the No need for greed or hunger, a brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one. This poem is called Leave It to Me. Can you hear who I am? Can you see who I am? Though you do not have the ability to be who I am while I preach who I am, can you reach who I am? Can you concrete and unbleached speech of who I am as I unleash who I am, who we are? I speak how you see, hear, preach, and reach us. With the dare to be bold, hearts exhaust monofold because they're exhausted from the smoke that comes from guns that are blue controlled. And when we take a closer look to the lives that were disposed, the process of justice and abolition is slow, rain check, postponed. With truth, we uphold the world when we choose to be people who tell from stories that go untold. We are people of skin, not just people of color, that bleed, but through the hands of others, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, made to stand on land, but some way somehow become black sand ashes, wind lost in history, leaving every reason for demise a mystery, leaving every strand of courage and pieces of morality, leaving every battle a mentality, and leaving the truth and potency to those who have the audacity. Thank you.
Give another round of applause for it. Amazing. Thank you, Mr. Irby, for accompanying me. So tonight, my name is Lorenzo Mitchell, and I'm a longtime resident of Mamaroneck. And I've been given the distinguished honor of introducing our guest speaker. Mr. Jeffery King is a longtime resident of Mamaroneck. He also grew up here, and he's also in town. He's currently the councilman in the town of Mamaroneck, Mr. Jeffery King.
Sitting here on the stage, you realize how intimidating it can be. We really should give our singer-songwriters, I think, another applause. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Welcome you all. I thank you for the warm introduction. I've gathered my thoughts. Please bear with me for one moment. You know, my brother and I, we used to wonder, and people asked us sometimes, are you related to Dr. Martin Luther King? And our grandfather was from Georgia. And I still remember one holiday, I don't know if it was Christmas or if it was Thanksgiving, but we were the grandchildren, we were in the den. We were kind of rambling through the top drawer, and we came upon a photograph, a black and white Polaroid 4x4 photograph of Dr. King's burial. I was up close and personal, like you and I received. And we looked at it, And I think there were 5 or 6 grandchildren. We were mesmerized because there were no 4-letter words, but we just said, oh my God, are we relating? And nothing ever came of that, and to this day, but I did several years ago as a Christmas present, I did receive Ancestry.com. And it came back that, yes, my ancestors did come from Western Africa, but I believe I am 8% Irish, 12% Jewish, and I don't know where else I'm from. I thank you all for being here tonight as we celebrate the incredible life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. A special thanks to the Larchmont Mamaroneck Human Rights Committee for inviting me to the 36th annual commemoration of the life of Dr. King. In addition, I would like to acknowledge and thank the many esteemed politicians with us here this evening. Each of these individuals stands as a representative of us all. They have collectively responded to a call, one emanating from within, an intrinsic drive to assist others, and a commitment to champion for what is right. Respecting human rights, treating all individuals with dignity and respecting their basic human rights. Equality and fairness, advocating for equal opportunities and fair treatment, regardless of race, gender, religion, or socioeconomic status. Social justice, working towards a society where everyone has access to the same rights, opportunities, and resources. Community engagement, actively participating in and contributing to the well-being of the local and global community. And most of all, peaceful resolution. Promoting peaceful dialogue and seeking non-violent solutions to conflicts. All these sentiments personify what Dr. King represents. In the early 1970s, my parents made a pivotal decision for our family's future. Faced with the stark realities of segregation within the Mount Vernon School District, they chose to uproot our lives and relocate to a different community with a more equitable and promising educational environment. This decision underscored the enduring challenges that Dr. King fervently fought against, the systemic segregation that persisted even in the aftermath of legal advancements. They opted for a better school system. My parents not only sought enhanced educational opportunities for their children, but also aligned themselves with the very principles Dr. King championed. It was a tangible act of resistance against the discriminatory practices that tarnished the educational landscape. This personal experience reinforced the profound impact of Dr. King's advocacy, demonstrating that his fight for equality transcended the pages of history books and resonated in the real-life decisions of families seeking a fair and just education for their children. You know, as I was preparing for tonight's event, I had time to contemplate where I am, my family, where we've come, and when it's time of reflection, I look back on where we have come and where we're going. And I pulled out several articles, which just mean so much to me, and it resonates with what we're discussing this evening. And this is an article just from the New York Times and Sunday Times about a father who was a civil rights leader himself and who fought for integration. And that was the reason why we moved to America. It's the reason why he joined the American School Board. So it's very personal for me to be up here speaking with you this evening. On April 4th, 1968, I was 9 years old when Dr. King was assassinated. I remember vividly sitting with my parents, my brother, watching the funeral unfold on television. I recall my parents, tears running down their faces. It transcended the loss of a great leader. It felt like a profound loss of hope. A collective sigh of despair echoed through our home. It left me stunned, creating a very personal connection to this story. One that embraces continual hope for change and ongoing adoration. Tonight, I hope to share these sentiments with you all and rekindle the fire for change within each of you. So, as we dive in, I want to give a shout out to the students in the audience. For you are the futures. I want to acknowledge your presence here tonight. The torch must be passed to the leaders of tomorrow. You, the students, are the leaders of tomorrow. You will be tasked with continuing the legacy of Dr. King and fighting for a society that rejects racist ideologies. You will strive for a society that values historical accuracy, avoiding any attempts to rewrite history through the prohibition of books covering topics such as slavery, LGBTQ issues, and the Holocaust. Your mission involves fostering a united nation that actively opposes contemporary forms of discriminatory practices, reminiscent of historical injustices like Jim Crow laws. You will fight for a country that embraces the good in all of us. We are making strides every day, and with each step forward, we bring America closer to the day when we'll truly shine as a great nation. Keep believing, for our collective efforts will lead us to get to a brighter and greater future. I realize that this might seem like a heavy burden to bear, a task that only a few have requested or anticipated. But I say to you, do not despair, because I once walked in the same shoes. And now I once walked in the same shoes you're in now. Many years ago, I strolled through these halls of Hommocks and the corridors of Mamaroneck High School. If someone had told me back then that I would be addressing you tonight as we pay tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I would be a non-believer myself. But in life, there comes a moment when we all are called to help those who cannot help themselves, to correct the wrongs that infringe upon our freedom of speech and personal choice. And when you hear that inner voice, do not be daunted by the challenges. Embrace adversity. Knowing you are not alone, stand tall, following the words of Dr. King. Make a career of humanity. Commit yourself to the noble struggle for equal rights. You will make a better person of yourself, a greater nation of your country, and a finer world to live in. These profound words were written by Dr. King in April of 1959, on the eve of the march to integrate public schools. We learn from the past through the eyes of our predecessors, but as we gaze into the future, it is through the eyes of you, the youth before us tonight. Allow me to share a story about the first time I recognized how music played a pivotal role in shaping my faith, particularly understanding the role of MLK played in shaping our future. Music as a steadfast source of inspiration has consistently offered solace, strength, and deep connection to my beliefs. It's a story my brother and I, at the time we were living in Mount Vernon, I don't know, perhaps the ages of 6 and 9, my parents came upon us one afternoon and says, you two are going on vacation with your grandmother. We thought, well, Grandma doesn't drive, so we can't be going too far. And we were going down to Salisbury, went down to Salisbury, North Carolina, the hometown of my mother. And I vividly remember my father taking us to the Auditorium. Because my grandmother was so intent on catching that bus, we were there about 5 hours early. We could have gone to two matinees we could have gone to. And I think the only comfort that my dad had knowing that, because my dad was always, if he was on time, he was 10 minutes late. That was his clock. But he knew that he was sending his sons away for 2 weeks, so I guess that's what got him through it. And it was a great vacation, it really was. Because this is the first time and the only time that we experienced living in the South. We actually experienced, and we got to know what it meant living under a hot tin roof with no air conditioning. Well, that summer we learned how to ride hogs. We learned how to pluck a watermelon. And as it was getting close to the culmination of our vacation, our grandmother said, "Boys, tomorrow we're going to church." Now, my brother and I, we went to Sunday school, but it wasn't on a regular basis. So we said, "Okay, Grandma, we're going to church." And I remember the day like it was yesterday. I think our Uncle Lauren drove us to this church. And as we pulled up, you had the feeling of a carnival. Kids were playing outside in front. And it was a tin roof, white-clad church. And there was a man outside shaving ice. And as we got closer, you could hear a sound. And as we opened the doors, there was a light that shone through. And we walked in, and again, we were the ages of maybe 6 and 9, in our grandmother's arms. And in the pews, there were people that were being touched by the Spirit, falling down. The fans were going, saying hallelujah, and amen. We didn't know what to expect. We were from Mount Vernon. We'd never seen this before. But that music that day resonated. And it stayed with me my entire life. And I realized that in music, for me, gives me strength. Lets me carry on in times of despair. Now, that's not for everyone, but that's where I find my strength. Reflecting on my childhood tale, there are threads of music, faith, and inspiration seamlessly intertwined, weaving a narrative that resonates profoundly, especially on this Martin Luther King Day. I spoke with Rabbi Jeffery when I was preparing this talk, and he left with some words that I would like to share with you today, quoted from his 2006 Yom Kippur Eve sermon. Living faith is taking a gamble on God, even more on ourselves. Believing that human beings facing a world replete with hatred and bloodshed in the name of the holy will still somehow enter the wrestling match, sustaining the struggle, choosing love, choosing life. For days I pondered on what I could express this evening. I questioned myself concerning what words Dr. King might share with you tonight as he observes the unfolding of events that shape our lives. I am of the belief that he would convey, and I quote directly, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." Tonight, I declare that we will overcome darkness. We will eradicate the prevalence of bullying in our schools. We shall triumph over a school system accused of being insensitive to students of color. Make them error. Challenging times lie ahead. However, taking inspiration from Simon and Garfunkel, we shall build a bridge over those troubled waters. And if you, my brothers and sisters, and if you find that going alone is not an option, to quote yet another great songwriter, Bill Withers, lean on me when you are not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. We'll unequivocally stand against gun violence and senseless killings, recognizing the urgent need for comprehensive measures to address this critical issue. Every life is invaluable, and we advocate for a society where safety and well-being prevail over the devastating impact of firearms in our communities. We shall overcome the atrocities of October 7th and rise above the hatred that compels a fellow man to kill innocent human beings. We shall stand tall with our brothers and sisters of Israel. But to echo the words of Coretta Scott King, an evil deed is not redeemed by an evil deed of retaliation. Justice is never advanced in the taking of a human life. Morality is never upheld by legalized murder. We shall overcome the malaise that has engulfed our nation, the illness that has clouded a view of what is morally right or politically correct. We shall overcome the unthinkable question of genocide. And if the pillars of higher education cannot see the moral road before them, we will persist. We will lead by example. We will climb the mountaintop. We will join hands with Dr. King, and we will walk to the highest peak. As I bring tonight's reflection to a close, I share a powerful excerpt from Dr. King's Nobel Prize acceptance speech for Oslo in 1964. I believe that even amid today's mortar burst and whining bullets, there is still hope for a brighter tomorrow. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. I believe that wounded justice can be lifted, the dust of shame to reign supreme among children of men. I believe that what self-centered men have torn down, other self-centered men can build back up. I still believe that one day mankind will bow before the altar of God, as nonviolent redemptive good will proclaim rule over land. For I believe we shall overcome. Thank you. I ask you to join me in singing the verse. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. For deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. Peace be with you all. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nicole Alafanti, and I co-chair the Larchmont Mamaroneck Human Rights Committee with Nancy Pearson. I want to thank you so much, Jeffery King, for that beautiful speech. You truly lead with humility and compassion, and you've been there to advise me over the years, and I appreciate it. It's been really an honor to get to know you and your beautiful family and your wife again Angie, and your sister-in-law, Camille. So next up, I mean, the world feels heavy, at least for me these days, but there's hope, and I would love to introduce our new superintendent, who is here, brand new this year, Dr. Charles Sampson, and he's going to introduce himself to us. So Mr. Sampson, thank you. When we invited him, he wrote back 5 minutes later and said, I'll be there, so thank you.
Well, my deepest gratitude for following Mr. King, who was incredible. It's an honor to be here tonight, and I want to share just a couple of reflections. First about the first couple of weeks in these communities, and then secondly about Dr. King. I am absolutely blown away by the immense contributions of community organizations, not just to the schools, but to the larger community as a whole and integrated. I've worked in public education for almost 30 years. I've worked in some of the most exceptional districts on the East Coast, and I have to tell you that there is none of those hold a candle to the contributions from the larger communities that are so deeply vested in our youth and in the folks that live within the Mamaroneck and Larchmont communities. It's really been humbling, and it's been a wonderful learning experience for me to get to meet those folks, and I'm looking forward to much deeper conversations and work together as we move forward from the Mamaroneck schools. When it comes to just thinking about the evenings about reflecting on Dr. Martin Luther King's legacy, two things from my perspective. One is a former social studies teacher who taught at the high school level. One of the most important takeaways, whenever the topic of Dr. King came up, I think Mr. King referenced making strides. The most important takeaway that I always wanted for my students at the time was that, and the work goes on, and there's so much more to do, and you can do it. You are the future. And so just imparting that to our students was always just the most important thing, because sometimes schools compartmentalize civil rights as a unit to be studied instead of a lived experience to promote dignity and understanding and belonging for all. And I think sometimes we lose our way. I'm here to support our students tonight, and I'm here to support the members of our DET community who will speak. I'm incredibly proud of the work that's happening in our school district as it relates to equity, inclusion, belonging, and you'll hear a lot more about that. But as a superintendent and as a public educator, I read a book, I don't know, maybe when I was 19 or 20 years old, by Joel Spring, called The Sorting Machine. I don't know if anybody's ever read it, it's an old book. But what The Sorting Machine laid out was how schools systematically segregate against students of color, poor students, students from different backgrounds and such, and it's just inherent in some of the systems that are built. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago, being superintendent for the past 15 years, is that the role of the superintendent has incredible leverage in mitigating some of those systemic structures that plague the belonging of particular student groups. And I take that work incredibly seriously. It's something that I know I've learned that when you turn it back for even a moment, the system ultimately sometimes works against students, certain students. And I've looked at my role as the superintendency is to mitigate those times when that occurs, to provide entry paths and support and access, opportunity, and accompanying support for all students to maximize their experiences within our school system. That work is important to me here in Mamaroneck. Supporting the work of the DET is important to me. Building future opportunities and pathways and systems that believe in kids, and that sounds a little bit ironic, a school system that believes, don't school systems believe in kids? The structures work against many of the folks that attend those public schools. And so as a superintendent, I think when I'm reflecting on the legacy of Dr. King, it's important for me to always remember to work toward the dignity and the belonging of all students, but most importantly, providing the supports, the opportunities, and the entryways for students throughout their K-12 journey to access everything that anyone else can within that system. And so, thank you for having me this evening. I'm so excited to be here, and I look forward to some wonderful future work. Thank you.
All right, so our next sort of piece of this evening is going to be a conversation with our Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, Jenny Rodriguez, and also the Diversity, the District Equity Task Force leaders, Leon White and Bonnie Sloofman. And that's going to be facilitated by two juniors at Mamaroneck High School, Jaheen Bent and Austin Carino, who you saw recite her original poem and say Imagine. So they're going to come up and take center stage and have a conversation about the work that's going on in our school district, which is actually pretty robust compared to many other districts right now. So please welcome them, and Jaheen and Autumn, please come on up and get ready. Jeff, if you want to join us, please do, we would love that. And thank you, Dr. Sampson.
Great. And I'm sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here, and more importantly, thank you for inviting us to have an opportunity to share with you all our work. And I was asked to talk a little bit about the DET and sort of its inception. Our District Equity Task Force actually started, I feel like it's making weird noise.
Yeah.
Do you want to fix it up? It started as our PASS committee, which was, I'll just keep going. So our district equity team, it was initially a team, actually started because it was originally part of the PASS committee, which was Program Alignment Team for Hispanic Students. And that was a committee that had been started probably 15 years previously. In 2019-2020 school year, we actually transitioned to become the district equity team. And later on that year, we actually began the formation of what we now use as our district equity plan. Since then, we've transitioned to a task force. And today, I'm actually very proud to say that while the DET oversees some parts of the equity plan, most of the plan actually really lives within the work that we do within the district. Meaning that, people often ask me, what is it that I do? But we really have looked at equity in every aspect of our school community. And now we'll start talking, a little bit more about the work that we're doing. Thank you.
So, just before we dive into talking about the DET, I only have two questions for Mr. Jeffery. First off, such a powerful speech. I was just curious on why you felt the need today to really address the situation at hand today, specifically how it impacts our community, and just overall, really, why you spoke about it.
I'm sorry, why I spoke about it? I'm sorry, what?
Why did your speech, the theme of your speech, why did you feel the need to speak on the situation that's currently happening in the Middle East, and how it impacts our families and stuff.
You know, that's a very personal, it's a very personal response. I think it goes to what I was saying in my speech, that in all of us, there comes a time, and you might be 15, you might be 25, you might be 75, but it comes and that voice might say, enough is enough, and it's time for me to take a stand. I can take the high road, I can take the low road. I can sit back and do nothing, but that does not advance what's morally correct. Not dealing with what's politically correct, what's morally correct. And as students and as parents, we try to give values that we believe in, that are morally sound. So when I see things that I know that are not morally correct, it brings tears to my heart. It's just a matter of, I have to speak out. So that's where it comes from.
And just a follow-up question. When navigating such a difficult situation like what we see, there aren't many students in the audience, but what advice do you have to offer to people in the age group like myself and Autumn who are observing all these horrible things? What advice do you have to those students when facing these challenges and how to navigate them?
Do not give up hope. And do not be discouraged by the lack of other students here. Because there are students out there that believe your causes, that will walk the walk, that will talk the walk. You are not alone. So I say, do not give up hope. Pick up the mantle, walk the walk, and people will follow.
Thank you. Mr. White, you didn't really have the opportunity to introduce yourself. Jenny, if you'd like again, to just state your role in DET, and we could just go from there.
I teach Hommocks, teach choir at Hommocks, but also I serve as a DET co-chair along with Councilman, and I've been involved in the DET work since its inception.
I am Jenny Rodriguez. I am the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging for the district. Prior to that, I was assistant principal at the high school, and I've worked with Leon since the very beginning of the DET. I took a little break, but he kept it going, so then I decided to join him again.
So let's talk about the aims of the District Equity Team Committee. You two have been on the committee for 3 years now, I believe. What are the overall aims of the committee within this community in the context of why it came about in the first place?
We're happy to answer, but I want to give Bonnie an opportunity to introduce herself. She's joined us a little later in the work, but has been doing an amazing job to push everything forward.
Hi everybody, I'm Bonnie Sleuthman. I'm a special education teacher at Central. I've been a MEAL, which is a Mamaroneck Educational Equity Leader. Leon is one as well at Hommocks. And this is my second year as a co-chair of the DET.
I'll just ask again. So yes, in the context of why the committee came about, what are the aims of the District Equity Team Committee?
Yeah, sure. So since its inception, we about 60 community members, including employees from the district, came together, brainstormed over Zoom, and came up with this mission statement that was all-encompassing, right? And at the heart of our mission is student achievement. And the mission is to identify, acknowledge, and dismantle systemic barriers that prevent equity and access for all students by creating and implementing a sustainable plan for equitable outcomes for all. And within that, it sounds like multiple, but within that, the heart of the vision that we have is fleshed out in the district equity plan. And then that is supported by a strategic plan that's created every year. And as Ms. Rodriguez Jenny pointed out, much of the work happens in schools, where we have equity leaders in each building that are literally working to make the dream of the equity team a reality.
Speaking of that reality, what have the committee accomplished in its time existing?
So right off the bat, the first thing I can think of is Jenny's role as a director of DEIB. Second, we appointed meals, Mamaroneck education, equity in education leaders in each building. Last year, we actually contracted with Dignity Consulting, who came in and helped us to explore the concept of belonging. And in that work, I mean, we can go all the way back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but in that work, we realized that yes, we can focus on our students, but we also need to make sure that the teachers who are in our classrooms also feel a sense of belonging, so that when they feel that sense of belonging, they can in turn make sure that their students in their classroom feel belong. So there were surveys in district-wide. Belonging teams were established in each building where the data was disaggregated. Strategies were in place to address areas of need. And I can speak about Hommocks. At Hommocks, we're actually now looking at student data, student belonging data, and I can tell you that the needle is being moved, especially last week we had presenters or facilitators come in and they addressed hate speech, which is a huge issue in our schools. And so the work is being done. It's not moving as fast as we love it to move, but with lasting change, there's work. The foundation needs to be shaken. The foundation needs to be changed so that we can build upon that strong foundation so the lasting change can be made for generations to come.
And I would add, in terms of, just to elaborate a little bit on this hateful, hurtful language, I think that part of moving that needle is empowering all of us adults to address those issues as they happen in all spaces in our community. And we understand that that is what is going to have folks feel like they have a sense of belonging, right? Is that when their dignity is, or our dignity is violated, we want to create an inclusive environment for all. And when our dignity is violated, we want to know that the adults in the building and the folks responsible are doing something about it and are addressing it and are being very vocal and saying that this is not what we stand for. And so when we talk about foundation and then building on that foundation, that's an example of that. I would say another example of that is, we really listened to the voices of our alumni and heard them talk about where they did not see themselves in the curriculum. And we've been working with Columbia University's Center for Professional Education of Teachers for the last 4 years on really revising our curriculum with an equity lens. And we created our own framework modeled after the New York State framework, where we're working within different departments to help them review their own curriculum and sort of with that lens of how can they be more inclusive, how do we have different perspectives and things of that nature. So that's another really big effort that, I think all of these efforts, as we did them, we're like, oh, this is gonna take a while. It's heavy work. We're not a huge district, but we're a large enough district where, we're talking about 900 employees or so, and so that's another area where we've really put in a lot of effort. And then I would also say, I think having an open conversation of the needs of our students that are traditionally considered marginalized groups and their need for affinity spaces, and being able to say that and say that openly and not shy away from that. And help the community understand that it's not that we're segregating folks, but that people need sometimes spaces where they can be themselves in order to then be a part of the larger space. And Leon has helped in that work, as well as many of our other staff members. And these are just some of the things that we've done. Bonnie has worked a lot with our equity leaders.
So I've done a lot of work with the meals and work facilitating monthly meetings with the teachers in each building. And part of that work with the meals is then helping the meals work and partner with their administrators on a building level. So it's what do the teams look like in the building? What steps are administrators and meals and equity team and belonging teams taking to make these changes so kids do see themselves in curriculum, so teachers have an opportunity to practice going through picture books and leaning into the conversations. It's often when children ask questions, you don't know what they're going to say, but how can we prepare our teachers to lean into the conversations that need to happen to need to create the change?
You mentioned earlier, Mr. White, you mentioned earlier something regarding students. I'm just curious on how you've been able to kind of get that student feedback. Like, how have you been able to really acquire their experiences?
So surveys were administered from 5th grade through 12th grade, and that's where we got the data from. I believe that some schools' next steps are to interview students like we did staff. So, you know, we can look at the numbers all day, but having a student in front of us conducting an empathy interview, they're called, basically telling us why you chose, for example, why you chose a 5 out of 10 in when the question asks how do you feel or how much of a sense of belonging you feel in your school, we can then qualify the actual response. So the surveys were given, the next step is to actually do empathy interviews with those students.
And we've actually started that work at the high school really recently, and just, I always feel like I have to explain this, but, we decide, everything that we've done has been based on the data, right? So we started off with our student achievement data, and now it's also the data from these belonging surveys. So when we think about who are the kids that we want in front of us to talk through their experiences, we're really doing that based on the data. So the belonging teams look at the data, they look and see, because by and large, it is a pretty great district. And by and large, most people have a really great experience. So when we're talking about, those that have a lesser than experience, and the scores are slightly lower than what the average is, those are the groups that we're bringing in and we're saying, what are the things that you need from us? What are the ways that we can make this experience a better experience for you? So we're literally at the beginning of those interviews, but we have started them at the high school and are hoping to do that across. And then this year we'll also re-administer the survey as well.
It's very interesting. You both mentioned belonging many times. What exactly does that word mean to you?
Well, so we read the book Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity by Dr. Floyd Cobb and John Carnaple. And there are 4 tenets, if you will, of belonging. And the first one is basically feeling the level of feeling that you have that you're being treated fairly, you're accepted, you're validated, and there's another one, appreciated, right? And so the questions that were generated for the surveys came under those 4 pillars, if you will, right? Everyone understands what it feels to belong, and everyone also, unfortunately, understands what it feels not to belong, right? If you're ignored or mistreated, that leads to someone feeling like they don't belong in a group or anywhere they find themselves. The goal of the equity in this district, equity plan in this district, is to ensure that, and I mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs earlier, and then they're at the bottom of the base, there's physiological needs, we want to make sure that kids have, well, not that we are responsible primarily for this, but if a student comes to our schools, without clothes or the right coat, we want to provide them, right? We want to make sure they're safe. And right above that, for them to actually become self-actualized and be their best selves and achieve, is love and belonging. So if there's no love in our schools, and if there's a lack of belonging, then we're actually doing a disservice to our kids, expecting them to achieve, right? And one of the things that the book talks about is actually omitting that middle level of belonging and expecting kids to achieve, and then they're accepted, and then they're actually treated fairly, and then they're validated. That's the misconception that has to be like relearned, right? We love on our kids, we accept them for who they are, and then they feel that they belong, and then they feel that they can learn.
And when we had one of the authors come speak to our entire faculty and staff, and one of the things that he talked about was this idea of when you have a greater sense of belonging, you have greater engagement, and all of us that are in education, we know that engagement leads to greater student achievement. And he gave the example of, in a community, when community members are engaged, they are likely to participate in the political system because they feel like they have a voice, they have a vested interest, right? And therefore, that's something that helps for everyone. And it's the same idea with a sense of belonging. The next layer that we've gotten to this year is really having, and as you can imagine, this is work that we're doing alongside of our students and our faculty, and we are constantly reflecting on it. But the next layer that we're really thinking a lot about is dignity, right? And this idea that, respect may be earned, but dignity is something that we are born with. And this idea of, in our schools and in our society, right, there have been groups that have been marginalized and their dignity being violated. So using this language to really help our students have a conversation around hurtful and hateful language and kind of using it as in conjunction with one another, with the hopes of creating really, when we talk about, creating a safe, inclusive environment where all of our students can achieve.
I also think it's important to point out some of the work we've done staff to staff members, knowing if you all just pause for a moment, it's probably a lot easier to think of an example where you weren't validated, you weren't accepted, because those are the moments that stand out to us, unfortunately. And I see you shaking your head, but when we think about in the classroom with kids as educators, even something that we take for granted in passing, we're juggling so many plates, but those moments with kids matter because they remember. So if we are not honoring their dignity and we are not validating them, appreciating and accepting, that's what they're going to hold on to. And so some of the work that we're doing internally is practicing these exercises with adults so we can do it with kids and then kids can do it with each other.
I have a question. Going back to when Mr. King was talking about setting an example for younger people, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the author Brené Brown. This thing she had said in one of her books had stuck with me, that hope is learned. And a lot of these things are learned, from, adults and people at home. And I think that dignity, it's being mentioned a lot, because I think, we are taught these things at home, and I want to ask, how do you think we can ensure dignity for all human beings? This is kind of a collective question.
Yeah, I think I'm only going to jump into this part because you mentioned the home piece. I think one of the things that we've talked a lot about is that this work cannot be done in isolation in any pocket, and so one of the things that we're doing as a district equity task force is we have different committees. So one of our committees is actually a community committee. And I'll take this opportunity to plug our event. But we essentially felt like we wanted to do this in conjunction with our families and answer that question you said with our families as well, right? We help our families, deal with all kinds of issues with their children, right? About learning, about drugs, alcohol. Well, we actually also have to talk about race and bias and homophobia. We have to actually talk about that with our children if we want to see it be different, right? I say that as a parent. And so, that is one of the things that we're really excited about this year. That we're going to do a series of workshops. The first one will be in February, and we'll be sending out more publicity on that. But that's one way that I think we want to do that.
I also think, as Jenny pointed out, there's another arm of our subcommittee in the DET that examines or reviews board policies with or through an equity lens. And we're fortunate enough to have a board member on the DET who liaises with us, and we're looking at different policies of review and providing feedback to the board. And coincidentally, the DASSA policy is one of the things that we're looking at, one of the policies we're looking at, just to make sure that we talk about the foundation of change and how we can actually make long-lasting changes, and policy is one way to do that, education policy. And so we're fortunate enough to be able to take a look and make suggestions and collaborate with the board and make those changes so that they can be long-lasting and also be implemented in all our schools in a way that's with fidelity and in a way that's uniform across the board.
When you asked your question, a quote that came to mind from Common Chronicles' book is, "Dignity is something all humans are born with, and it should not be able to be taken away from us." So I was in our belonging team at Central just had a meeting last week, and we were really pausing and thinking about what the word dignity means and making sure that all people in the building, not just teachers, have a clear understanding of what dignity is. That way we have that common language that is also part of the mission of the DET. I personally think about it a lot from the lens of a special education teacher, and knowing that behaviors, let's say, are a form of communication, but even when children are having a hard time, that it's really crucial to honor their dignity too.
And I took for granted that everyone knows what DASSA means. It's the Dignity for All Students Act. And dignity is basically worth. We're all worthy of the person we are, the human we are, and that should be honorable where we find ourselves.
Just to take an opportunity to piggyback on something that Bonnie said, because in my examples, I often talk about race because that's the lens that I see the world. But we know that when we talk about hateful and hurtful language, it spans everything, right? And today actually the group that we met with was one of our groups of special needs students who gave us, in a second, great suggestions on how to really create an environment where the rest of our students know and understand that there are different learning experiences and environments. And so, that's a second example, but we could go on and we can sit here and go on through all of the different examples in ways in which people can be marginalized in our district, but in our country. And so I just want to be clear that we're looking at, we look at all of these things. It's not just through one lens. We all have our own lens that we look through, and I think that is the power of our leadership, a community that we have built amongst the three of us and amongst the leaders in the building. But I just wanted to make sure that I got that point across.
Well said. And lastly, I'm sure it's already been stated, but what are your individual hopes regarding the District Equity Team Committee and educational equity? What, in the time ahead, what do you want our community regarding education, our schools, to look like?
My hope is that we can remove all barriers that impact kids, whether it's financial, learning-based, access to everything kids need, and knowing that we as educators have so much of an impact on kids and being able to work with our district to make sure that our kids are seen in what they're learning and that kids learn how to talk with each other and learn from each other even though we're all different. And you know, going back to why we're here is just advocating for each other and standing up and knowing that it's not easy, but it's important, crucial work.
So Dr. King, an excerpt from his speech says, "Now's the time to lift our nation from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood." And as Jenny stated, we're not just looking at skin color, we're looking at any kind of marginalization, that happens within our school district. And I think one of the biggest challenges, and not just in this district, with DEIB work across the world, is a misunderstanding of what it really is, what it means. And my hope is that we come to an understanding that it's not a zero-sum game. We're not taking from one group to give to another group to leave this other group with deficiencies, right? We're basically hoping and creating systems and implementing systems that will enable students who need to receive what they need, right? It's not a new thing, it's not a fad. It's actually humanizing. Neither is it political, right? It's basically serving all our students and all our families in ways that they need to be served. And at the end of the day, schools are here to ensure that students achieve. And if, like Jenny said earlier, we're looking at students who might not be achieving as high as their neighbor, right? And we're trying to see, well, where's the dissonance between the vision and the outcomes, and then in the middle of that, trying to figure out what needs to be done to mitigate those negative experiences, low achievement rates, and so on and so forth. So that's my hope for our district.
I think for me it's twofold. It's making sure that that all of our students can achieve the district's mission, right? And you know, for me personally, as I said it earlier, I attended a school very similar to Mamaroneck, but it was a private school, and it changed my life and that of my family as a first generation recent immigrant at the time. And so my hope is, and then and then my work has been helping found schools that do that for all students. And so my personal hope is that this amazing district with all of its resources really lives up to the mission for each and every student that walks through our doors.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you, Jenny, Leon, Bonnie, Jeff, Autumn, Jaheem, for that incredible interview. We're standing here today as members of the Human Rights Committee. I'm Girardi Martinez.
I'm Elizabeth Sanger, and I especially want to thank the student who was sitting next to me, who provided me with everything I needed this time. Because I lost my script, I lost my list. Thank you. Okay, now it's the moment to name our honorees. This event serves as a platform to recognize the tireless efforts of local organizations and their volunteers who give their time in the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. by our honoring of these people. Here, the Human Rights Committee hopes to inspire collective action toward a more just and compassionate world. Tonight, we are privileged to honor remarkable organizations, the Westchester Jewish Coalition for Immigration and Neighbors for Refugees, standing side by side in their commitment to uphold and champion human rights. Human dignity. I love all this word of dignity. Okay.
Thank you. And accepting for Neighbors for Refugees, we welcome Michael Reichgott.
Thank you. So good evening. On behalf of the board, and our volunteers, and our refugee clients, I'm proud to accept this award as we commemorate the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Best remembered as an activist for civil rights in the United States, Dr. King was a tireless advocate for human rights worldwide. And Neighbors for Refugees is honored to have been considered worthy of recognition for our efforts in support of the rights of individuals and families from across the world who have come to the United States seeking refuge. Neighbors is an ecumenical group of volunteers with representation from several churches, synagogues, and secular institutions in Larchmont and Mamaroneck. We came together in 2016 in response to a refugee crisis precipitated by the civil war in Syria, and our work started as a partnership supporting Syrian refugees. We have since hosted individuals and families from Pakistan, Myanmar, Sudan, Afghanistan, and Venezuela. And if you stop at the counter outside, you'll see a flyer that has information about all of the places that we've supported refugees. We've been able to do this with the support of officially recognized refugee resettlement organizations such as HIAS, Catholic Charities, and International Rescue Committee, and with local groups like the Westchester Jewish Coalition on Immigration, among others, but mostly because of the hands-on work of committed volunteers and outpouring of financial support from the community. The need sometimes seems overwhelming. The United Nations High Commission for Refugees estimates that as of October 2023, there were more than 110 million displaced persons worldwide. And of these, about 36.5 million were categorized as refugees, that is, people who are seeking a safe haven after being forced to flee violence, persecution, and war. From the U.S. perspective, individuals characterized as refugees have already applied for entry and have been vetted before their approval. But there are many others seeking help. Asylum seekers arrive in the U.S. fleeing danger and persecution. Afghanis who worked for the U.S. in Afghanistan can apply for special immigrant visas. Migrants whose home countries are considered unsafe can apply for temporary protected status, and that allows them the right to live and work in the United States for a period of time. No matter what their label, these individuals and families need assistance for food, shelter, education, employment, and legal support. They can all apply for formal refugee status,
but there are no guarantees. So to the extent that we have the volunteering financial resources, Neighbors for Refugees has and will continue to assist clients in all of these categories. As you'll see on the flyer that's outside, in 2023, Neighbors for Refugees helped resettle 28 families, 95 individuals, more than 40 children. We assisted in setting up an additional 27 apartments for families receiving assistance from other agencies. We provided 61 grants for food and housing, and our Road to Independence program helped 36 individuals with grants for skills training, equipment, and licenses needed for employment. Currently, we're working to place an extended family that came from Afghanistan, but came across the U.S. southern border, having hiked all the way from Brazil, seeking asylum. They were bused to New York with other migrants, and they're now living in shelters in the city. We've been able to do this with the help of more than 90 volunteers and the financial support of individuals and institutions, local and across the New York metropolitan area. The work is challenging, but the rewards are many. We have shared experiences with like-minded, committed people. Our refugee clients become pay-it-back volunteers. The CDL license with tests taken but in English by a Pashto speaker. Green cards, and our first client has now become a naturalized citizen. And now the great honor of this award from the Committee on Human Rights. So again, on behalf of the volunteers and clients of Neighbors for Refugees, many thanks.
Thank you so much, Neighbors for Refugees. This has been a long time coming. And now, accepting on behalf of the Westchester Jewish Coalition for Immigration is Holly Fink.
Good evening, everyone. It's such an honor to stand before all of you tonight to accept this prestigious award on behalf of WJCI. Just like Martin Luther King Jr., human rights and social justice are at the core of what we do. It's ingrained inside us to help people in need. WJCI started out for the first few years of our existence in 2019 as an advocacy organization. But with each recent global refugee crisis, we have pivoted and in essence grown. WJCI looks through everything we do with a Jewish lens. But we welcome all immigrants, regardless of faith and background. We work with members of dozens of synagogues and interfaith congregations and organizations in Westchester, the Northwest Bronx, and Rockland County. We put our hearts into action and provide tools and resources to community members to resettle refugees and provide other support services to enable newcomers to thrive in our community. After a massive drive that filled over a dozen trucks with necessities needed by Afghan refugees deployed at Fort Dix in 2021, WJCI ramped up our resettlement efforts as part of a collaboration that featured grants from UJA Federation of New York, the Shapiro Foundation, and Jewish Federations of North America. In 5 months, we funded and supported the work of 17 local resettlement groups, bringing over 100 Afghans off American Army bases. We also provided funding for job training for Afghans, created an Afghan Women's Circle to educate women, and regularly engaged local teen community members and others to support them. And then the Russian invasion of Ukraine occurred in 2022. Once again, we reached out to our community members, teamed up with the national resettlement organization HIAS, and formed over 12 welcome circles, groups of individuals who came together to sponsor and save over a dozen families, giving them all a new home. And along the way, we've inspired community members to tutor English, provide career counseling, and attend our many educational events to help lift Ukrainians up. One of our greatest achievements has been partnering with the Ukrainian Church in Yonkers on a monthly gathering for newcomers. And then, of course, October 7th occurred, and the state of Israel suffered a terrible terrorist attack. We all feel a compelling sense of obligation to once again step into this crisis, and now we are helping displaced Israelis seeking temporary refuge in America. We also have close relationships with local legislators and politicians. We regularly bring community members to meetings with decision makers, advocating for human rights and social justice for refugees and asylum seekers. And during the annual Refugee Shabbat observance, we bring refugees and volunteers into congregations around the region to speak their truths. I want to thank board members Brian Fink, our treasurer, here tonight, Judy Fensterman, our secretary, Marty Michael, vice president, Howard Horowitz, Ronnie Siegel, Abby Marcus, Heidi Reaver, Ruth Rossi, Bob Klein, hi Bob, our legal advisor Alan Himmelstein, and graphic designer, consultant Kate Sebastian for their tireless energy and commitment to making sure that WJCI exists to convene both the Jewish and interfaith communities to make the United States a place where refugees, asylum seekers, and other immigrants can live safely with dignity. And Sweetlana and Sasha, who are also here. Two people our work has touched and who, by knowing them, have made me a better person. On a personal note, this work began for me in 2016 when I helped form Neighbors for Refugees. I learned about compassion from all the wonderful people at NFR. So receiving this word next to you is incredible. And it's equally amazing to get the word from Durandi, who also have a close relationship. And I'm so grateful to you for everything you do, Durandi. Welcoming strangers to all sides of our community and watching our community members stand up to help is what we call Tikkun Olam, healing the world. Thank you.
It's really important to thank Nicole Alfonte and Nancy Pearson. Both did so much work.
Please, thank you so much to our unsung heroes. We really hope that this continues to give you hope as we all continue to lead our communities.
Jane Anthony to come over on behalf of Town of Mamaroneck.
I have proclamations for both of you, to thank you for making our community a place where immigrants can feel free and welcome and live here safely and with dignity. I also want to thank you on behalf of the community, because I think our community is so much richer for having a diverse population and, you know, having immigrants and refugees in our community. So I want to thank you for your work.
Can we give another round of applause for the recipients of this year's award? I have the privilege of being at this event since I was a young person. When I moved to America in '85 myself, and no better groups to have gotten this award than the two that were honored tonight. So now we're going to go back to something that Mr. King talked about before in our relationship to music. So I have the chance of introducing Kaylee Taylor, and she's going to sing 2 songs for us, accompanied by Mr. Steph Chen, who's a music teacher at MAS for us. Thank you. After that, we'll sing with the voice and sing after that. Thank you.
swim in the ocean just to breathe and fix what is broken. Oh, 'cause I need you to see that you are the reason. And there goes my head shaking, and you are the reason. My heart keeps bleeding, bleeding now. And if I could turn back the clock and make sure I defeated the dark, I'd spend every hour of every day keeping you safe. I'd climb every mountain and swim every ocean just to fix what is broken. Oh, 'cause I I'd climb every mountain and swim every ocean just to be with you and fix what I've broken. Oh, 'cause I need you to see that you are the reason. I've been walking with my face turned to the sun, weight on my shoulders, oh, pulling my blood. Oh, I got eyes in the back of my head, just in case I have to run. I'll do what I can when I can, while I can for my people. While the clouds roll back and the stars align, that's when I'll take my people with me to get away or going to a new home. Far across the river, through your freedom calling, holding me to hands. I'm gonna keep on moving on. I can feel it in my bones. Early in the morning, before the sun begins to shine, we're gonna start moving towards the separating line. I'm wading through muddy waters. You know I got made up mind, and I don't mind if I lose any blood on the way to salvation. And I'll find the strength that I knows I've tried. Sure as stars feel the sky. Stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a better home. For across the river, and you need freedom calling, pulling me to hands up, gonna keep on keeping on. Stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a better home. For across the river, and you need freedom calling, pulling me to hands up, gonna keep on keeping on. Stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a better home. Across the river, I hear freedom calling, pulling me to hands. I'm gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones. And I go to prepare a place for you. I go to prepare a place for you. I go to prepare a place for you. I go to prepare a place for you.
You're amazing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the roaring sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun, light of new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chancing rod, felt in the days when home, unborn and died, yet with a steady beat, have not say that William Derby, who played tonight, and the students who performed, Steph Chin and Kaylee, our performing arts are truly a space for dignity and belonging in this community. I see it over and over again, every single time. Every time these children are accepted, they're being creative, they're collaborating. And it's been an honor to sing with Steph Chin's chorus, the Mamaroneck chorus. I'm in there with Kaylee, and it's really like a magical thing. And Steph's been here for 32 years teaching, and Will Derby's been here for 20 some odd years. So I just want to shout out to dignity and belonging in the performing arts. It takes courage to get that. So let me just find my thank yous. I'm sorry I'm overwhelmed right now. Yes, the elected officials who are here this evening, thank you so much for being here. Jeffrey King, Dr. Sampson, Jenny Rodriguez, Leon White, Bonnie Sloofman, Jaheen Benton, Austin Carino, all the performers, Neighbors for Refugees, and Westchester Jewish Coalition for Immigration, Holly Rosenfink, and Michael Reichstadt. I mean, really, thank you so much for your work, really. And LMC Media, Joe Brady, and Bubba Finelli, making everything beautiful, and the Larchmont Mamaroneck Human Rights Committee. I stand on your shoulders. I've learned so much from you. And just thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. Stay safe.